Welcome to latest Seahawks Draft Blog live stream. Rob and Robbie here. We may be joined by Adam at some point. If he gets here, we'll chuck him into the room. But what a performance that was by the defense, Robbie. We know that is an MF defense. That is what we were looking for when Mike McDonald was appointed. That's the kind of performance we've been waiting years for, and not just that performance. They've strung 3 games together. I thought after the Rams game that people were talking about how positive the defense was. I was like, yeah, but let's give it more than one game. Let's see if they can stack some performances together. And they have done. Defense played very well last week against San Francisco, and they took it up to another level this week against Arizona, Robbie. That was absolutely fantastic on defense, led by Leonard Williams, who was unstoppable. That was a great defensive performance today.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also thought Devin Witherspoon played amazing on that interception that he caused when he turned around, and how quickly he made a play to get Kyler Murray to throw that ball. All around defense just played phenomenal, and that was fun to watch. Like that's a defense that I can get really, really excited about.
Yeah, I think just everything about it. They limited the run. In sometimes what you can do against a quarterback like Kyler Murray, Robbie, is you can play really well against the run, the inside run, and then they'll just sort of play action off that. They'll bootleg. You'll have your quarterback scrambling around, and because you're so focused on stopping that interior run and just clogging the lanes, that it creates open space for Kyler Murray to run wild. And that never happened. Kyler Murray's had some really big games this year, some really positive performances, and he never got going today. Like he had his plays, like he's going to make his throws. He's not going to have 50 yards in the game. Trey McBride obviously was very difficult to cover. But apart from that, they limited him. What he is at best at is to sort of be that dual threat, running, scrambling, creative dynamo. And he wasn't today. James Conner wasn't a big factor today. And they've ended up with 6 points. And even if they'd have got the kick at the end, that's 9 points to hold them without a touchdown in that game. And they're the team that's top of the NFC West. They'll be coming to Seattle thinking, here we go, win this game. We're taking a stranglehold on the NFC West here. They've been getting a lot of good publicity, the Arizona Cardinals, rightly so. They've played well. And Seattle just, there's going to be a lot of people this week, Robbie, talking about the Seahawks. A lot of the national media are going to be talking about the NFC West, the state of the West. They're going to be talking about the Seahawks. They're going to become a trendy pick again because the Niners are gone. They're gone. I mean, they're just done. They're cooked. They might as well just rest the guys who are not healthy at this stage. They're done. The Rams are the Rams. The Seahawks should have beaten the Rams. That's the frustrating thing now, is that game, after the Rams game, I didn't really care, Robbie, because it was that point. They'd lost, 5 out of 6 at that point, the Seahawks. They were going into their bye week. It was like, yeah, whatever. But now I'm looking back at that Rams game and thinking, the Seahawks should be, 7-4? Like, they should have won that game. And that would have been a huge game to have. But, this is what we needed. To sort of wrap it up before I bring you back in. This year was always about seeing progress, was about sort of feeling better about the team at the end of the year. And if the defense keeps this up, Robbie, it doesn't really matter what happens the rest of the way. If the defense is playing like this, then at the very least, you can have a lot of confidence about Mike McDonald and the direction of the team and the defense. Now, the offense we're going to come on to, because that's a whole different question. I've got some big thoughts on what might happen there in the future, Robbie. But defensively, this is it, isn't it? This is what everybody wanted to see. We've waited years for this defense. And now it seems, touch wood, that it's here.
Yeah, I mean, and the Cardinals went 3 for 12 on third down conversions. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, to hold that team to 3 of 12 is that's a huge stat. And watching the guys feed off each other as they were making plays, and it just, that's exactly what I've been wanting. I think this was very exciting, and just all around great performance. I'd like to see him continue this streak. And this is what, like, I've seen a couple of people say, like, this is why we hired Mike McDonald. And that's 1,000% right. I mean, this is it. I mean, and this is what we're going to get. I hope we're going to continue to see this. And yeah, I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on the offense. I'm sure of it. But as far as the defensive side of the ball goes, I'm stoked. I'm really excited.
Just having a look at the Cardinals, what they've done offensively. Now, it is worth saying that Arizona's defense has been very, very good this year. And explosive as the offense can be for the Cardinals, and as much as they have these dynamic playmakers, it has often been if the defense plays well, then they win, and the offense can play off that a little bit. And they've got a defensive-minded head coach, but they scored 31 points against the Jets, 29 against the Bears, 28 against the Dolphins, 34 against. Oh, sorry, the Packers scored 34 against them. I'm reading that wrong. 24 against the Niners. They got 41 against the Rams in week 2. They typically have been able to put points on the board. Again, the defense has had to sort of play off that a little bit as well. The defense takes them where the offense wants to go. But to hold them to 6 points is a real positive. I just want to, Robbie, I just want to go back to Leonard Williams. Like, it's just been such a long time since we've seen a performance like that. Somebody sent me a tweet during the game saying, I've not seen a defensive performance like this since Jadeveon Clowney against the Niners in 2019. And he's exactly right. That person was exactly right. That was a game-wrecking performance. They could line him up. There was one snap very early in the game when he just ran over the center of one of the guards, just shoved him straight back into the backfield. It was like watching Jonathan Allen playing for Alabama again. There was another play where I think he got a sack, where it was just his quickness, his burst. He got a big tackle for a loss, again with that quickness, burst into the backfield. He had a sack rushing the edge. He rushed the edge. There were 2 guys blocking off the edge, if memory serves. I think he had to get round the chipping running back and the tackle to get to Kyler Murray, who somehow didn't hear the 300-pound Leonard Williams running behind him. Absolutely hammered him. It was just it's the kind of performance, Robbie, that we see players against the Seahawks have, but we very rarely see a Seahawks defensive lineman have a game like that. I mean, if he does not get a 90+ rating on PFF, I don't think I'm ever going to go on that website ever again. Like, that was just an unbelievable performance. Leonard Williams, if he keeps playing like that, he's going to be such a positive for the Seahawks.
Yeah, and there's a lot of pieces around him too, like other guys rushing and things that are helping him kind of just single up instead of having to do doubles. I really feel like that they're starting to like really get some cohesiveness together as a team on the defensive side of the ball. It's really fun to watch. They're really playing well. It's fun. This is really fun. I'm excited to see these guys just get after it and fly around and make tackles and just long gone. I mean, there were a few missed tackles, but for the most part, long gone are the days like a few years ago where it's just like, man, every run you'd see 4 or 5 missed tackles every single time. And it seems like the guys are wrapping up and they're gang tackling. I really like this. If I had the only complaint was McBride, could you put a bell on that guy or something so you knew where he was at? Guy was freaking open all the time, but that would be my only complaint.
Yeah, I'm willing to overlook that a little bit just because I think there was, they have so many good players, don't they? Someone was going to, it was either going to be that everybody kind of got 30 yards or someone was going to get a lot. And, if one player gets a lot, as long as you don't let him beat you, I think it's acceptable. And, if a running back runs for 138 yards or whatever it is that Trey McBride got, it can be more of a problem than when they just sort of throw, especially at the end when they got some cheap yards there. You're kind of playing a bit of prevent defense there. So thought that was really, really good. I just wanted to read, sorry to keep going on about it, but Leonard Williams' stat line, because I think it's absolutely incredible. So he had 6 tackles in the game, 2.5 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss, 1 pass deflection. I couldn't remember that. And 4 quarterback hits. And that is you don't see a stat. That's a Myles Garrett stat line, that's an unbelievable stat line there. And like I say again, I really hope that he gets the attention and the credit that he deserves this week, because that was a Leonard Williams-led performance. It's just unbelievable. One of the best defensive performances I can remember from a Seahawks defensive lineman. And I don't think they dominate without him. And there were some other good players you mentioned. Devin Witherspoon had a good game. I think the linebackers had a good game again. I think generally, I don't think there was anybody who had a bad game on defense. There was an intensity there. I love the energy that Leonard Williams was playing with, and I think he kind of set the tone. I think across the board, the energy was good. It was exactly what I expected to see, Robbie. And look, there's still something. I think there's still room for another quality defender on this unit somehow, some way. I don't know who that is or what form you get them in. I still think there's more to add to this defense to make it more akin to a Mike McDonald system. Maybe it is a Kyle Hamilton type player just to finish things off. Maybe they can go and get one of those in the next offseason. Maybe they go and sign Buda Baker, who they kept touting as a free agent all the way through that game. I don't know. But they just need that one final piece, Robbie, to bring everything together. But I think it's such a positive to see the defense playing this way and to have that kind of a game against a good quarterback with a good running back on the field, a brilliant tight end, a receiver who everybody expects to be brilliant in Marvin Harrison Jr., and a good supporting cast with the likes of Michael Wilson, who's a really underrated player. So a brilliant defensive performance. Get your super chats in. We've got a few of these already. I'll read some of them out now. If you've got a question for either of us, or if you want to just make a point, then stick it in there and support the channel. So Tommy says, defense exactly why we hired Mike. Run game on life support, not so much Grubb as offensive line, in my opinion. Maybe even K9, not a match for the scheme. I've got a lot of... Tommy, really appreciate the super chat. We're going to talk about the offense, and I've got a few... I think there's a lot of things to talk about with the offense there. But Tommy, thank you for that. Mike says, give all of Charbonnet's touches to K9. I mean, I don't know about you thought, Robbie. I didn't think Ken Walker had a particularly great game today. Like, he's a great athlete, very explosive. He can make things happen. But for me, there was just a bit too much dancing around. He was out of the game at one point because the commentator said he had a poked eye. I remember I turned to my wife at that point and said he'd have a sore arse from my boot as well if he'd turned around to me and said, I've got a poked eye, I can't get on the field in the red zone. I didn't think either running back played particularly well. And in fairness to Zach Charbonnet, he did have a couple of good plays at the end. But we'll talk about the offense. And Hawks fan Matt Mann, who's a great supporter of the channel, says that was the most demonstrative I've seen McDonald on the sideline. Feels like he's finally seen his vision start to manifest on the field. I completely agree with that, Matt. Thank you for your super chat. The other thing I noticed, Robbie, is I thought the crowd sounded a lot louder today. I know I'm 5,000 miles away and watching it on the TV, but the noise levels and the intensity of Lumen Field felt a lot better. That might because there was less Cardinals fans than Niners or Bills or whatever, but it just felt like the crowd were in it today, and it played its part in that defensive performance.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I remember at one point sitting there thinking the same thing, that, man, it actually sounds a lot louder there today, and like that they're in the game and excited about it. So yeah, I really think it was a lot louder today. I think even the commentators may even said something about it.
Yeah, well, it felt louder. There was a couple of times when I'm only watching it on my laptop. I have to watch it on the laptop. They put like the national TV over here could have easily showed a bit of foresight, I think, and actually done a bit of homework to realize the Niners were going to be awful and not put the Packers Niners on as the main game, which was a complete waste of time and a blowout. And they could have put this game on instead. But I had to watch it on my laptop instead and on Game Pass, and you could just, it was distorted because of the noise from the crowd. And it's been a while since that's happened on the old laptop there. So I was really pleased to see that. Droidine says, is it too late in Geno's career for him to learn not to make an absolutely inexcusable turnover? We will come on to the offense. But thank you for that super chat. We will definitely come on to the offense. Thank you for that. And Jason says, howdy, boys. I hate that I can tell whether we're running or passing on almost every play. Grubb is the only coach on this team I'm not sold on. Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about the positives more because I think with the offense, Robbie, there are quite a few negative things. And I don't want to just spend 14 minutes talking about the positives and get on to the offense, because I think the offense warrants a serious conversation here. It wasn't a disaster by any stretch, but there are some big thoughts that I have. So seeing as we're on a more positive note, I'm just going to have a look at the stats between the two teams. I mean, the one big thing, Robbie, was the third downs in the second half. So the Seahawks ended up 7 of 14 on third downs. Cardinals 3 of 12. That's a big factor in the game. Big factor in the game. And neither team ran the ball well, but at least at the end, the Seahawks could churn out a big, long drive to get the job done. They finished with 7 minutes more in time of possession in the end. And if you actually include Arizona's failed fourth down conversion, they're actually 3 of 13. And that's another big thing for the defense, isn't it? That's another thing. You've got to get off the field. Although teams kind of exchanged 3 and outs at the start of the game, it never really felt that the defense ceded any kind of control to Arizona. They always felt like they were a step ahead in that game.
Yeah, sorry, is my mic working? I keep getting this weird like glitch. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly well.
All right, just want to make sure. Yeah, yeah, I think the defense overall, like just like I said, just every time that Arizona seemed to have anything going, they'd get a huge sack, or they would, they just weren't getting anywhere. And James Conner, he's a really good back actually, and you would think this guy would get a lot more touches, and the defense just shut it down. And at this overall, I'm really happy with the way the defense played, and I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of what they can continue to add. And like you said, they're missing maybe one or two pieces that they can add. And I'm not really sure what that is.
Do you think it? Yeah, I was going to ask you what do you think it is? Is it a great safety, like I said, like with Kyle Hamilton? Is it that, or is it another defensive lineman? Is it a great edge, a better edge than we have?
I mean, maybe I was going to say someone like I could see them replacing Draymond Jones with someone else, kind of swapping him out because he's so expensive, and, making that salary worth it for someone that, plays a little bit better. I think maybe someone like that, maybe another linebacker. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the missing piece is, but you feel like the defense is close though.
Yeah.
I can't say that about the offense, but I can say that about the defense.
If it plays like, it's going to be hard to play that level every week, but if it plays something close to that every week, it might be that this is a moot point and there isn't anything else. And by me sort of saying maybe they need another Kyle Hamilton, that is not. Look, one of the safeties today had a pick 6, and we should talk about that and the celebration. And the other Julian Love, I thought, had a really good game as well. So definitely not saying that safety is a problem. It's just, what is the one thing that could make this a quote unquote elite defense? It still feels like there's room for one more really talented player. I was just looking at the horizontal board for the draft ideas. Maybe it is sort of a Malachi Starks, that kind of multifunctional. He's not the same size as Kyle Hamilton, but can play a number of different positions. I don't think he played that well against Massachusetts yesterday. Nick Emanwari, who is unbelievable size, great athlete as well. I mean, he could be Kyle. I mean, people have wondered, I've wondered it as well, Robbie, whether he can be a Kyle Hamilton type with his size and speed combo. The way he's played has been brilliant for South Carolina this year. JD Barron, who I wrote about this week, is a very, very creative player. Maybe it's players like that. Or maybe it's just, look, Josiah Stewart had another amazing game in this defensive scheme for Michigan. He got 2 sacks at the weekend. Wink Martindale loves him. Wink Martindale and Mike McDonald are very close, and McDonald sees Martindale as a mentor. So maybe someone like Stewart, but then, is he an elite NFL rusher? No. Is he someone who can kind of add to the rotation a bit? Maybe. So, there are players there. There are players that you could sort of see doing that, or maybe it is just sort of adding another wily veteran somehow.
I think someone just made a good point here. The Brian Murphy emergence in year 2 might be that piece. I mean, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about that.
It's a good shout.
Yeah,
it's a very good shout. That could be it. I'm really delighted to post this one. It's not a super chat, Robbie, but it's Mark. Now, people may remember there was a few weeks ago, Seattle lost a game. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been the Giants game, or it might have been the Niners game. And Mark accidentally put in a $480 super chat. And then I contacted YouTube to see if we could refund it because it was an accident. And they said they couldn't. So we tried to sort it out. We couldn't. But as a consequence, Mark, if you ever want to say anything on the stream, just start it with $480 Mark here, and you will receive your permanent accidental super chat. I assure you that you can have as many as you want. And if I ever miss them, Robbie, keep an eye out for me in the comments, because I'll have to start them and come back to them. He says, do you think that the Ernest Jones trade was the catalyst to the run defense and the overall defense changing? Mark, thank you for that. What I would say, Robbie, is I don't know if, like, it'd be very easy to go, well, Ernest Jones is the difference. I don't know. Obviously, he has played very well, I think, anyway. PFF didn't think so last week. I almost think a little bit, Robbie, it's almost Baker and Dodson not being there is more the thing than the guys who've replaced them necessarily.
Yeah, I think it was eye-opening for them to get rid of Dodson. I think that was one of the big things. And again, this is not to take anything away from Ernest Jones. I think he's played great. But yeah, I think just sets the stage of like, hey, don't dick around. Like you're not here just to collect a check. You need to play good. And I think sending him off was maybe an eye opener to the team. And they're getting better play out of the two linebackers that they have now.
Another super chat here from Jack. Pair Malachi Starks with Love. Great game, fellas. I mean, that will be interesting. The problem with Malachi Starks is he's had some really good splashy plays this year. But then he didn't have a very good game against Massachusetts. You know, that he gave up a big play in the game yesterday. And he is very, very good. He's very, very talented. I like his personality. I just would have liked to have seen a few more plays, especially when you play for Georgia. You know, let's see some big plays in that Georgia secondary. So maybe he will last to the range the Seahawks are going to go. But here's the thing, Robbie, and I'll come on to this in a second. You know, the Seahawks now are getting into a place where they ain't going to be picking in the middle of the first round anymore because they're top of the NFC West. So at the very least, they're going to be, 19th, 20th at the worst case scenario if they get to the playoffs. I think that's right. So they're not going to be in the range for some of these players we've been talking about. As it happens, I think that would probably be the ideal range for the interior offensive lineman. So that would be the best of both worlds, really. If they end up winning the NFC West and then they're in a better place where you can justify, okay, you can take Tyler Booker here, you can take one of the other guards here without feeling like it's a massive reach. I think that if you're picking the first half of the first round, you probably are going to be looking at some of these defensive players because I think it's going to be a defensive-heavy sort of first portion of the first round in this draft. Before we talk about the NFC West picture, and then we'll get on to the offense. Kobe Bryant's pick 6. It's a great play by Devin Witherspoon. I think he made the play. Bryant will get the most of the attention, but it's really Devin Witherspoon who makes the play. But then having picked it off, you've still got to finish it, Robbie. He did finish it. He did the Marshawn Lynch, which shoulder? That shoulder. He did that celebration. Obviously, that's from the second Beastquake, not the first one. And somebody else did it last week or the week before, Robbie. I can't remember which player did it. Every time I see that celebration, I get a bit excited. You know, and I watched the Beastquake during one of the commercial breaks. I had to watch it again. And what a call that is. Was it Jim? Not Jim Nantz, is it? Is it Jim Nantz?
No.
It's the guy who does the CBS commentary now for the college football. I'm sure it is. And it was Mike Mayock who was there.
Yeah.
Mike Mayock did the... What a commentary that is, by the way. And it just made me think at the time I was stood about 5 yards from Mike Mayock in Munich for the Seahawks Buccaneers game. And if he hadn't been having a conversation and it looked like a very serious conversation with somebody, I would have gone over and said, Mike, I just want to shake your hand for years and years of fantastic draft coverage and also the commentary of the Beastquake. And it's one of the biggest regrets that I didn't have a chance at some point while I was in that press room, Robbie, to just, while he was alone, to go and shake his hand and say thank you. And he might have thought, I wish this guy'd piss off. But at least I'd have done it. And it's one of my biggest regrets. But what a play that was. It really is time that the league stops being a stuffed shirt. And I mean, like, come on. It's one of the things that bothers me about college football, Robbie, that anytime a college football player tries to celebrate, it's seen as like a heinous crime. And that the refs are like poised with a hand on the flag. No fun, no joy, lads. Not until after the game. Like, just let them celebrate. Like, who cares if he grabs his groin when he jumps into the end? It's a fantastic moment. Like, if you get offended by that, then come on, you need to get a bit of a grip. So why they keep flagging those kind of things, Robbie, I think it's stupid. But well done to Kobe Bryant, because if I was running in a pick 6, I don't think I would have the ability as I was running in, Robbie. I'd be too excited to think I'm actually going to do a Marshawn Lynch here and celebrate in that way. So well done to him for remembering that.
Yeah, when he did it, I was pretty excited too. It's just, there's something about it. It's just it's like a throwback, but like just like some appreciation for Lynch and everything he brought to Seattle. And I'm here for it. Anytime they want to do it, I love it. I'm
gonna celebrate by I dropped this can, right? I dropped this can on the floor as I was coming in. The can is all dented because it's been dropped on the floor, and I'm worried it's going to explode when I open it. So, but I'm going to run the risk of that in memory of the great Marshawn Lynch celebration. So let's. Oh, beautifully done.
Well,
cheers.
That was disappointing. I was just laughing. Jason just said, "I'm grabbing mine now." So
cheers,
cheers
to Marshawn and to Kobe Bryant. Cheers, cheers. It's quite hard to drink out now. I've dropped the can and it's all smashed on the top. Anyway, couple of super chats before we get into this NFC West talk. This one from Noah says Jihad Campbell or Emanwari would make this D crazy. Campbell's been fantastic. Again, nobody played well for Alabama yesterday against Oklahoma. What a mess that was. And Kalen DeBoer, his hot seat is getting especially warm right now. It's okay, though, because Ryan Grubb's going to join him in Alabama next season. Oh, that's a spoiler for what we're going to talk about later. But Campbell would be interesting. I mean, Tyrese Knight's played very well, I think, in the last couple of weeks. So I think he probably deserves a bigger run this year before we replace him with Chad Campbell. But I think he's a great player, Campbell, who's probably going to go in the first round. I think people are sleeping on him, saying he's like a day 2 pick. I think he'll go earlier than that if he tests well. And Emanwari's been really slept on. He's just too athletic. So he could be a real option there. Thank you, Noah. Jerome Baker was awful against the Texans today. He was. I don't know if you saw much of that game, Robbie. Tennessee upsetting the Houston Texans. He got woefully beat in coverage for a touchdown. Jerome Baker looks a bit like he doesn't want to play football anymore. And when you sort of look at it now with hindsight, you think, yeah, that's why one of the reasons why the defense wasn't very good. So, fair play to the team for making that change. Big Mike says, Big Cat with the best individual D-line performance since Clowney wrecked the Niners on Monday Night Football. Absolutely true. We mentioned that. That's exactly what it was. Thanks, Mike, for the super chat. Bernie says, Rob, I appreciate the work you do and won't be surprised if I've been following you and your content for over a decade. When are you joining Blue Sky? Bernie, I am not big on, I don't do a lot of social media. Like I have an Instagram account, which, I don't use very often. I'm not on TikTok. I am on Facebook, but I just keep my school friends on it. I don't want more social media in my life. I think it's ruined our culture as it is. I think you spend all day on your phone. I'm not joining more of those things. But thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. And Phobia says, D-line was impressive. Go Hawks. It absolutely was. It was fantastic. Led by the brilliant Leonard Williams. An unbelievable defensive performance. And it's exciting. This is it. For those of us, Robbie, who wanted a change, and it was, and people attributed that wanting that change to some kind of like hate of Pete Carroll, and it was nothing of the sort. Respect for Pete Carroll always, and wished that maybe he'd gone out on his own terms a few years ago and hadn't had to sort of be pushed out the door. But we wanted to see a change because we wanted to see the defense get better. And I'm sorry, I just would not have imagined that Clint Hurt and Pete Carroll could have produced a defensive performance like we've seen in the last 3 games. And look, they're doing it against the NFC West as well. So I'll be going into that next Arizona game confident. I'll be going into the next Rams game confident. And I'm looking forward to what kind of a run they can put up against the Niners now, because they've ended that losing streak, Robbie. Let's start a new winning streak. Especially if the Niners are going to be crap for a few years, which would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm here for that. I'm all here for the Niners being crap. I actually appreciated the Blue Sky commentary. It's funny because Rob and I actually talked about this a couple days ago, wasn't it? I asked you, what the hell is Blue Sky? I had no idea.
You didn't know.
I have no. That's how bad I am at social media. I have a Twitter account and I have like 40 followers.
What I would say is like I know like the whole thing is a big. If we could just stick to football, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Anyway, I'll back to football. Yeah, going against the Cardinals next week. In 2 weeks, I feel a lot more confident going against them. I feel even more confident as well playing. I still feel like we may drop one to the Rams or the Niners at some point, just because it's the NFC West and you just never know. But here we are sitting at the top of the division, and I'm just like, if you had told me three weeks ago we'd be leading the division, I just would have said you're high. There's just no way. And here we are, and we got a chance, and the defense looks like it's starting to put it together. And I know we're coming to the offense, but if they can start putting it together too, like it's fun. It's like, it makes it more fun. Obviously, it's always more fun when the Seahawks win. It makes it more fun, and when you're on a losing streak, it sucks. But just watching a dominant defensive performance, that gets me excited.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And there is a chance. When you actually look at how this is shaping up, that they could go on a bit of a run here. You never want to get too carried away. I didn't want to talk about this last week because it was just one game, and we saw them have just one game against Atlanta. You thought, oh yeah, beat the Niners. The Niners are banged up, whatever. But I feel a little bit more confident talking about it today, Robbie, because they've handsomely beaten the Cardinals, and they've handsomely beaten the Niners. I know that it was late, but I think if they played the Niners next week in Lumen Field, they'd batter the Niners the same way the Packers have battered them today. I think that's just the way that the two teams, they're heading in different directions. But you're playing the Jets next week. The Jets are just imploding. The Jets are awful. Who knows whether Aaron Rodgers is even going to be the quarterback next week, because there was talk this week that they might cut him. They might put him on injured reserve. He's now I think he's having his say, and Rappaport was talking about, he's had such a horrible hamstring injury all season. It's barely been able to play. It's like, yeah, here come the excuses for everything. And if he does want to play in 2025, the best thing for Aaron Rodgers right now is to not play for the Jets. It's to say, yeah, I was injured. I'm still great. Trust me. Somebody else give me a chance next year. Blah, 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 blah. Cut me, put me on IR, whatever. So it might not even be Aaron Rodgers. And heck, Robbie, it might even be better if it's Aaron Rodgers, because he's not playing very well. So I don't know who the backup is in New York these days. I'm guessing it's not anybody worth sort of shouting about here. So that's a winnable game. You've just beaten the Cardinals. I think that'll be a fascinating game in a couple of weeks' time when we have the rematch in Arizona. If you can win both of those games and get to 8-5, then you've got 4 games to get to 10 wins. Like, all you have to do, if you can win the next 2, all you've got to do is split the last 4 games to get to 10 wins. I'd be surprised if 10 wins doesn't get you sort of in the mix to win the NFC West. So you've got the Packers at home. I think the Packers in Lambeau would be a tough game. I think the Packers in Lumen is a game you kind of have your eye on there and think you can win that. You play the Vikings. Again, the Vikings in Minnesota, I think that'd be a tough game. I think the Vikings in Seattle will still be a tough game, but I think the fact you play it at home gives you a shot. The Bears are going to fire their coach soon. By the time that game runs around, Robbie, who knows what the Bears can be like, but you'll have a chance to beat the Bears. And they'll have a chance to beat you, but they're a bit of an unpredictable team. And then you finish with the Rams. There's a chance there. Like, my prediction was, I think, 10 wins at the start of the year. And then if you'd have asked me 3 weeks ago what I thought it was going to be, I think I said 7 wins to put. And now I'm back to thinking 10 wins isn't that unrealistic. So is that getting ahead of myself there, or is it fair enough? What do you think?
No, I mean, I'm looking at the schedule right now, and you're right. I mean, the Jets, you would imagine winning that game. Arizona, again, I still think Arizona's a good team, and it could go either way. I feel better with we played today. They may be a little more prepared to play us next time. I'm not really sure. I think you're right. Playing in Lambeau at Green Bay, that's a tough one. But we play so good on the road, it feels like now, that I don't know if that really. I don't know. We'll see. I think Minnesota will be a tough out. I think Chicago will probably be the win. And then, although they played a lot better today, but, and then the Rams, and again, that can go either way. So yeah, I don't think it's unrealistic to think 10. I think I predicted 9, and I think 9 or 10, that's very realistic.
Somebody in the comments made a fair point, but I think there's a fair counter to the fair point that the Jets beat the Texans. So that it shows that they've got something about them. But what I would say is the Texans are not a good team this year. Believe it or not, there is a team in the NFL with a worse offensive line than Seattle, based on what I've seen, and it's the Houston Texans. They are getting CJ Stroud killed behind. Like, he can't do anything. He has no time to function whatsoever. Maybe their line's a bit better than Seattle's because whenever I watch Mixon play, the running back, he seems to actually get some yards. So maybe they're better at run blocking and that puts them ahead of Seattle. But their offensive line has been so bad. And they lost to the Titans today in a game where the defense had a pick six. So the Texans they came in with all of promise, a lot of like trendiness about their chances this year. And they're a very average team who can lose to the Titans at home. So I don't really place that much stock in the fact that the Jets beat the Titans. It's actually, is it fair to say it's a game the Seahawks should win next week, Robbie? If you want to be a serious team, if you want to win your division, you beat the Jets next week.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, Michael just made a point right here. We're actually playing at home against Green Bay. It's not on the road.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah,
you said that. Oh, I thought that's what we. I thought
no. Sorry, maybe I didn't make it clear. Maybe So the point was, if it was in Green Bay,
got it. Okay,
it would be very difficult. If it's
Makes
in
sense.
Seattle, I think it's very difficult for them.
Got it. Yeah,
I think whoever was at home would have been the favorite in that game. That's not a spectacular thing to suggest. It's not a great prediction or anything.
Yeah.
But it is. But I think it being in Seattle is strange because Seattle doesn't have a great home field advantage, but they're even worse at Lambeau. Like every time the Seahawks play at Lambeau, I just chalk that down to a loss. So the fact it's here is a good thing. Couple more super chats. Keep those coming in. Mike says the D was communicating, very animated, chirping at the cards. House was rocking. Shout out to Myers, and I think Grubb's doing pretty good for first year. What's the skinny with Nwosu? Thanks, gents. Thank you, Mike. I don't think Nwosu is any closer to getting back because he was asked Mike McDonald about it on Friday or Wednesday. In one of his press conferences, he was asked about it. Like, is he going to come back? Are you gonna? I think they could have activated him for the first time for this game, maybe. And he said that. And when he was asked about it, he's like, "We're not going to activate him," which to me makes it seem as if he might still be 2 or 3 weeks away from potentially being back. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him until near the end of the year, maybe even for the playoffs, which is a shame because we've not really seen him. We don't really know how he fits. And it makes a question mark for his future because he's on such a massive salary now. And for 2 years in a row, he has been injured. So it makes you think, well, at what point do you have to just say it's too much for a player who's not been available when you have cap problems? But at the same time, he is such a good run defender. He is a player who you can imagine really fitting in this scheme. So I want to talk about Ryan Grubb in a bit because I do disagree with you there, Mike, that Grubb is doing a pretty good job. I think he's struggling. Mike says, Byron Murphy hardly played. Defense plays great. Is it a coincidence? I did notice that Murphy didn't seem to, like on some key third downs, it was Reed with Williams. And Murphy, he had a good stop on a run play, I think. There was a couple of guys in there, and he was one of them. He didn't seem to play a lot of snaps today. I wonder if they are kind of reining things back a little bit, whether he's having more of a rookie learning curve there than perhaps many of us thought, that as time goes on, rather than getting more snaps, Robbie, he's actually getting less.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be the defense, or it could be just the presence of the veteran of Jaron Reed and how well he knows the scheme playing as well. And being that Murphy's still a rookie, and yeah, maybe he's just not picking it up quite enough yet. But I did notice that as well. I don't know if it's a coincidence. I'm not really sure.
I mean, I think Murphy will be fine. I don't think I think that's the thing about that pick. So I think at the worst case scenario, you'll have a decent-ish defensive tackle on your hands. I never thought he was going to be a game wrecker because he wasn't a game wrecker for Texas. And it's very rare that you have a defensive tackle who's not a game wrecker in college and then suddenly flies into the league and turns into a 10-sack-a-season dynamo. But I think the comparison that Jim Nagy often mentioned with Byron Murphy was Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett's not been a big sack guy. I think I mentioned in the offseason that Grady Jarrett, I think, had less sacks than Jaron Reed, and he's played a season more. So it's not, if you get Grady Jarrett out of Byron Murphy over the next decade, you'll think that was a good pick, but he won't necessarily be a big splash play specialist. He'll just be like a really good defensive tackle, and I think that's probably what he will end up being, and maybe just needs a bit more time. And that meant that Reed got a few more snaps today. We'll see if he has a few more against New York. It'd be nice to be in a position where you're 20, 30 points ahead of a team in the fourth quarter, and you can sort of play him a bit more than some of these younger guys and say, get out there and, pin your ears back. That'd be quite nice. Right, we've delayed it enough. If you've got any more super chats, get them in, support the channel. Really appreciate everybody who sent those in so far. Offense time, Robbie. I do not think Ryan Grubb will be the offensive coordinator next year. But I will explain why in a little bit, but what did you make of the offense?
Yeah, I thought they played really poor. I saw what everyone else saw, which just wasn't efficient. I'm going to start on some positive with the offense. Abe Lucas is hands down the best offensive lineman we have, and having him back is phenomenal. I think he really helps set the tone. I think you see him down blocking guys and pancaking guys. He's just a difference maker on the right side of the ball, and it's great to have him back. I think JSN has emerged as a complete superstar, and I think he is going to help change kind of like, I don't know, the wide receiver dynamic. I know DK is supposed to be that guy with Tyler Lockett, but I think Jason is a great combination of both those guys. He's fast, he's shifty, he's got great hands, he runs great routes. He's not big and physical like DK is, but he's probably he's more sure-handed, and I just think he complements DK really well. I think he's going to be an absolute superstar. I think the last 3 games have shown that he's starting to come in on his own, and he's starting to really feel comfortable on the team. So I really, really like him. And I did not agree with the earlier comment where maybe Kenneth Walker was not a good fit for the team. I think he is a good fit for the team. I think every time he touches the ball, I think he looks like he's electric. He has been dancing around. Maybe he's just trying to do too much. But again, I don't think he's getting enough touches. I would like to see Charbonnet not take as many touches, though he did have some good runs today, but it wasn't that long ago when we were like, why is Charbonnet getting the ball? And I would rather see Walker touch the ball more than have Charbonnet touch it. Those are my opinions. And that's how I feel about it. So I'll just start with those positives and go. I'll leave it there and let you go on to what you want.
Well, I think you make some good points, especially on Abe Lucas. Superb again. We'll see how he grades out, but you could just see there was one play where he pulled from the right side to the left, was in space, was driving a guy back. Ken Walker just got caught from behind, and if that defender doesn't do a good job to catch Ken Walker from behind, I think Abe Lucas might have driven that guy out of the way so that Ken Walker could have like a 40-yard touchdown there. So brilliant to see Abe back, and it was very much a blog favorite in the pre-draft. It was a fantastic first year, and he's got the aggression, he's got the athleticism, he's got the size. I thought it pre-draft he could be the best right tackle in the NFL, and I still believe that. I really, really hope he stays healthy because he can be that good. Jackson Smith and Jigba, somebody mentioned in the comments that he could be Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I think they're slightly different players. I don't think they're similar in. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown's got that little bit of more acceleration than Jackson Smith and Jigba, but I can see why people would make that comparison. And the last 3 weeks, he is becoming the guy, isn't he? Like he's getting the targets. They're not force feeding DK, they're force feeding Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I think that's a noticeable change. I think we are seeing a situation where whoever is running the offense, it's going to be DK and Jackson Smith and Jigba who are the key receivers, and obviously Tyler Lockett's taking a back seat now, and this will almost certainly be his final year in Seattle unless they rip up his contract and he comes back on something a lot smaller to finish his career and just be a very cheap third veteran receiver. That's a good point. Somebody mentioned the Farrah Brown catch and run. Farrah Brown had a really dumb penalty at one point, which moved them from like the 2-yard line or the 3-yard line to the 18 to start a drive. But that run energized the defense. You could see, like, I think it was Kobe Bryant was coming over and sort of slapping him on the shoulder pads and everything like that. And those kind of plays, I think they do matter. When they juice up a defense as much as anything. You want to see people finish runs. So I'm glad that you started. This is why I love having you on, Robert. This is, you took us immediately towards a positive line. But now I'm going to talk about Ryan Grubb. Okay. I do not think Mike McDonald will have watched that game today and be thinking, I want my quarterback with a 10-point lead, deep in his own territory, with the rain coming down, throwing over the middle, throwing behind, and almost getting picked off for a second time in back-to-back drives. And Mark Sanchez is screaming, why don't you run the ball? Why don't you run the ball? I know Seattle probably is allowing their offensive line to dictate what they do. And I think they feel, rightly or wrongly, I think probably rightly, that right now they are better off having Geno Smith standing in the shotgun, aka a long way away from the line of scrimmage, to give him an extra bit more time and throwing it. They are just not. This is not a Mike McDonald offense. This is not the way that the Harbaughs play football. And I think, I'm just guessing, like based on what McDonald's been saying in his press conferences, that he's not entirely happy with the way the offense has gone this year. And I know when I was watching that game, I just thought, again, it's too much passing. They can't block to get any kind of movement up front. And I know that's some of the offensive, but it is on coaching and scheme as well. Because they're a bad offensive line. Seattle's not the only team with a bad O-line. And other teams who have bad O-lines actually just set out to run the ball because they can't pass protect. And they can't do it. They can't get Ken Walker going in any game. Like every single rushing yard that Ken Walker gets is a grind. Like people have given up on Zach Charbonnet, and I completely understand why, because he's not playing with any juice. But I also think it's the fact that the scheme does not get them anything in the run game. And I just don't think it's working. I just don't think this is meshing. The Mike McDonald, the defense is taking step forwards. Everything's progressing. And I don't think this identity of the offense is what a Harbaugh protege wants. I think they throw too much. They can't run. And if I had to make a prediction right now, Robbie, unless there are serious changes between now and the end of the season, that we are going to see a change at offensive coordinator, and that Ryan Grubb, they probably won't fire Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, that maybe Ryan Grubb will go and help him out in Alabama next year and get the band back together, and that Seattle may well go and get an experienced offensive coordinator who's been in the league before. Maybe it's going to be one of these offensive-minded head coaches who get fired, whatever. Maybe it's someone maybe it's the guy who was in Detroit who they could have appointed last year, but you'd imagine that he might replace Ben Johnson if he takes a head coaching job. But I do not think the signs are good for Ryan Grubb. And people saying there's no chance and it's not going to happen and stuff like that, I'll just remind you that we've been here before with people telling me there's no chance of this, there's no chance of that. How many times have we been wrong, Robbie? I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but this is not a Mike McDonald offense, in my opinion, and that's how I think Mike McDonald feels about it. That he is not seeing the offense that he wants to roll with in his job as a head coach, and I think they're going to get somebody who can run something that Mike McDonald wants to run next season.
Yeah, I mean, you make some really interesting points, things that I hadn't really thought about, like, coming from a Harbaugh Ravens kind of offense, that's not really the style that they play with. I never really thought about that and never considered that as an option. I think you asked me last week what I thought of Grubb, and I said I'd give him an incomplete. It's so hard to grade the guy right now. But you're right. There's a lot to be frustrated about. And, we have a lot of tools and weapons to be good. And, as you were pointing out, there's a lot of teams that don't have good offensive line. So there should be no reason why they can't work around that. And maybe he is, and it's just not working. I'm not really sure, but yeah, I think there's a lot of things that could, be changed in the offseason, on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not trying to get in a big, debate on who's starting where or what. I don't want that fight. But I'm just saying, I think that could be, but one of the first things that goes is the offensive coordinator. And, if it doesn't go well the rest of the season, that's what they're probably going to blame it on, right? You're going to give Mike Macdonald another chance. You're not going to fire him. It could be an option where John Snyder, maybe there's a talking to him about maybe him not being around either. Like that could be an option as well. But I think Mike Macdonald's here, and I think if anybody's going to go, it'd be Grubb.
I just think, and again, look, people can make arguments. I'm not saying there's no credence to the idea that, well, they're not going to fire him after 1 year and the O-line's not good and you've got to give him a better offensive line. I get all those arguments. I'm not saying there's no validity to any of those counters, but I just think we have to look at what has happened with this hire. They appointed Mike Macdonald, and reportedly he was in a partnership with Arthur Smith, who was going to be his offensive coordinator, the former Falcons head coach, former Titans offensive coordinator. And because the Ravens got as far as they did in the playoffs, Arthur Smith was a bit worried that he was going to be left without a job. Now, he doesn't need the money because isn't his dad run at FedEx or something like that? Like he's the heir to like bajillion dollars. So it's just tickled me, Robbie, that somebody's pointing out that you have hair because you took your hat off. And in the comment section, everyone's going, Robbie has hair.
Yeah, I always wear a hat.
Yeah. But anyway, that distracted me. So they were going to appoint Arthur Smith, but he took the Steelers job because he was worried he was going to miss out and he didn't know what was going to happen. So he couldn't join Mike Macdonald. So Mike Macdonald gets the job. They're then holding interviews with people. I think you can kind of put 2 and 2 together and work out some of the guys they spoke to. I think one of the people, it's pretty obvious, was Eric Bieniemy, who's having a torrid time with UCLA. And one of the people they spoke to was Ryan Grubb. And they've kind of had a look, and the pool was quite thin of candidates. They spoke to the guy in Detroit as well, and maybe with hindsight, they should have gone with him. But I think there was a lot of appreciation for what Washington did and what they did last year, and to get some of that in Seattle. And John likes explosive downfield passing and stuff like that. And they're giving him a shot. But as time has gone on, Mike Macdonald's going to be looking at this and thinking, okay, I've got my feet under the table now. Like I've been a head coach for a year. I know what I want. I know how my defense needs to connect to the offense and play complementary football. And I don't just think it's a case of O-line bad, therefore they're not doing it. I genuinely think there's been enough comments in his press conferences where he has said things, and Brian Hortblogger mentioned this, like he would say one thing and Grubb would say something in a press conference which was a little bit different, and then Mike Macdonald's seemed quite frustrated with the way they haven't been able to run the ball, haven't committed to the run, and I just think the more the defense performs very, very well, Robbie, the more it's going to empower Mike Macdonald to say, I want, I've done my side of the bargain here. The defense is good. Now you've got to give me an offense that can match it and complement it. And I'm just not feeling it. And like I say, I reserve the right to change my mind in a few weeks if things turn around. I really do. I'm not saying this is not a prediction that I'm sort of tied to. I'm open to change my mind. But when I was watching that today, and I've watched another game where Geno Smith, in a game where the Seahawks led for most of the game, and they've thrown the ball 31 times, and Geno Smith has been sacked a further 5 times and has run 3 times, and none of those were design runs. So if you add all those together, that's 39 pass play calls, and Ken Walker's run it 16 times and Charbonnet 6. Like, that is so far weighted towards the pass. And I don't think it's okay to just say, well, it's just the O-line. I think you have to find scheme ways to get some movement up front, to be creative with your run fits. And nothing says that more than the fact that they had the 2 short yardage runs against the Rams and the Niners and couldn't even get a yard. And there's just not enough creativity there. And I think in the future, they're going to make a change, potentially. to align the defense and the offense and have somebody who can run the kind of offense that Mike Macdonald wants to run. And fun enough, when you watch the Steelers, they're running the kind of offense that I think that Mike Macdonald would want to run. And they've kind of recharged Najee Harris's career and Jalen Warren, who's been playing very, very well. So I think that's something in the future. You've mentioned some of the positives, Robbie, on the offense. I am going to mention a thought on Geno Smith. We've got a couple of super chats as well. As before we wrap up here, I thought that was a very Geno Smith game, in that he had some great moments, some big plays, the kind of things that you expect from him when he's playing at his best. There are also some bad moments, that interception. And look, some of the interceptions are not his fault that he's had this year. I think he's also had some plays that were near interceptions. He had one against LA for sure, which went straight through the hands of the player, the defender, that could easily have been interceptions that probably should have been and weren't. So I think it kind of balances out a little bit. Robert, he's a 12 touchdown, 12 interception quarterback this season. I think to me, it reinforced how I feel about him. That he's better than a lot of players that you could have if you are looking purely you're not drafting in the top 5. You're not, you're just looking at who are the veterans out there, who are the draft picks available later on. He's better than any of the options I think the alternative Seattle's had a chance to get their hands on, realistically, in the last 3 years. But I also don't think he's somebody that I want to personally tie myself to a $50 million a year contract to, or even a $40 million, because I just think he is that. You're never quite sure which way it's going to go. And I think for the here and now, happy to root for him and happy for him to be the starter. But I do think the Seahawks have to, as part of every offseason going forward, have to sort of turn over every stone to see, is the future at the position here?
Yeah, I'm really glad you just said that, because I think a lot of times we get a lot of hate for people thinking that we just don't like Geno Smith, which is actually not true at all. We talk about this offline. We like Geno Smith quite a bit. I just don't think we're willing to pay him the amount of money that he's probably going to seek after this season. That would just, in my opinion, isn't going to be worth a 12 touchdown, 12 interception quarterback. Does he play fine now? Yeah. Is he leading the league in average yards per game right now? Yeah, great. But did he make a hell of a run last week and beat the 49ers to get the monkey off our back? Yeah, he did. I'm not taking anything away from him when I say I'm not saying I want to move on from him. I think he is an excellent bridge quarterback for something that we need to get someone else in the door that to kind of help us move forward with the franchise. Because I don't want to tie 50, 60 million into an aging quarterback who I know some of the arguments people are going to throw at it. Well, he hasn't had to play. He's still fresh. I understand all that, but I don't think that's not really how physics work. Like your body's still going to break down. You're still aging regardless. And it doesn't mean he hasn't thrown the football or anything. I mean, I just don't think that's really what I want to tie my money into. And listen, we could draft somebody and think he's the next guy and have it just be an absolute, he could be terrible. And then we could go, well, I wish we had Geno Smith, but I'm willing to risk that for someone who could be great as well. And on a cheaper contract. If you look at Geno Smith's contract currently, and the amount of money that you could spend on 2 guards, maybe a center or a guard and a center, and maybe another piece on the defensive side of the ball, I'd rather plug those pieces in place and have a good balance and then be looking for that quarterback. That's just my opinion. Again, I'm not saying get rid of Geno Smith. I don't hate Geno Smith. I think we get a lot of hate for that. That's just not true. We don't hate Geno Smith. I just don't think we're willing to pay the amount of money that he's probably looking to get.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, it's as simple as this. And I think this is completely fair and a balanced way of looking at it. I think you go into every offseason and you take it year by year. So you will go into the offseason and go, okay, who are our free agent options? Who are the players in the draft? What do we want to do? And you may say, okay, the veterans are not as good as Geno Smith. There's no reason to move on. We'll keep him for another year. Maybe you can work our way to lower his cap hit and add another year. I don't know. But you can maybe do some stuff with the cap to create some space. You might be able to sort of rework his deal to kick some money into the future, thinking maybe you're going to re-sign him anyway. So you can work through that. But you go year to year. And And then you sort of wait the next year. Okay, are we still comfortable with him? He's going to be 36 in 2026. Do we want to, what do we want to do? And I think you go year to year. And I think that is probably that's the sensible way to do things. I think that's probably what will end up happening, because I don't think he's going to have a massive market if he reaches the market. I don't think you're going to need to pay him an absolute mountain of money to get there. But I think you go year to year. But in the meantime, each year you'll have to do, and I think they're doing this. I think, I'm not suggesting the Seahawks haven't done this. I think that's why they added Sam Howell. I think it was like, okay, we don't think we're going to get an option in the draft, so we'll acquire Sam Howell so that we add a young player who's got some experience in the league. And I've had a look at Sam Howell. I'm guessing, Robbie, that right now they don't think that Sam Howell is the future quarterback. But then you go into the next offseason, you have a look. Is there a veteran out there? Is there someone you want to trade for? Like, I don't know, maybe there's a. If you rated Bryce Young or something, I am not suggesting you trade for him. But if you did and he was available for a fourth, maybe you add him as well, or something like that, or a third or something, and you bring him in and then you have a look at him. You keep Geno Smith and you're sort of working out. I don't know. Like you just keep looking. Then you look at the draft and you go, okay, is there anybody we want to draft? Is there anybody we'd be happy to take in the second round? Because I don't think there's a first round. I don't see a first round quarterback the Seahawks would take. I mean, there's probably maybe one that I could potentially see them taking, but I don't know if he's going to declare. So I think you then sort of look at it and you go, well, is there someone you'd take? And if you are going to take someone, it'd be ideal to keep Geno Smith next year and then have the quarterback that you've drafted not have to start straight away. So I think there's lots of ways of looking at it. But what I don't think they should do, and what I don't think they will do, is rush to pay him a contract that ties him down to the age of 37 on the kind of money that, let's say, Kirk Cousins is getting. I just don't see that happening. And today's a reason why, because there's some good, there's some bad, and that's who he's been. And I enjoyed watching him play, but I also know that every now there's a chance that interception where he's scrambled and thrown it straight to the defender might happen. So I think that's all that's worth saying on that. Final few super chats then to finish off. And if anyone's got any last super chat, want to support the channel, send them in now because we're going to wrap up very soon. Noah says, so happy to see us build on last week's performance. The defense is making huge progress each game. Can't wait for the Ryan Grubb experience to end. Thank you for that, Noah. Misfit74 says, Farrah Brown, Sharp, Bradford are turds. Well, that's an interesting way of putting it. Lockett is cooked. A nice positive super chat there from Misfit74. Thank you for that. And Graham B says, tell my wife Lindsay to go to bed, please, Rob. She's a Bengals fan. Up the Seahawks. Lindsay, go to bed. And, being a Bengals fan, well, I guess somebody has to be, don't they? Although, the thing is, they must be a frustrating team to follow because they've got a heck of a bunch of talent on that team and they can't get out of their own way. And they came so close to winning a Super Bowl. And, if you're that kind of a fan base, you always wonder, is it ever going to happen? Right then, unless we're getting more super chats. Any sort of final thoughts then, Robbie? Are you feeling positive? Are you feeling optimistic about the Seahawks right now at 6-5?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're leading the division, I think you have to be a little bit positive, right? I mean, you're leading the division after 11 games in the season. I feel pretty good about that. I will say there's one thing I forgot to mention. I didn't notice any issues at center today, and I even tried to pay attention to Olu a little bit, and I didn't see much. So I feel like maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah, I hope so. I didn't focus on him, but
there wasn't a glaring hole there either. So
there wasn't, but I just thought the run blocking was so bad on the interior, and I don't know if that was him or whether that was the guards. I've no real feel for it. I don't have a feel for how Haynes played when Bradford went out injured. I thought Lake and Tomlinson looked pretty bad. I can imagine both guards are going to get stinking grades from PFF. I don't know whether Olu will escape that and will actually come out with a good grade or not. It's something we'll have to sort of wait and see. And I'm probably not going to go back and watch the game because I already have enough on with the draft. So I'll wait to see what other people say if they clip him up and stuff like that. But I just thought the interior was so like they just couldn't get a lane going or anything. Like there was just nothing up, for the running game through the middle. It made me just think I'm not sure if these guys are going to come out with a great grade, but we'll see. They need to be better. Needs to be better up front, and maybe it's not going to be fixed this year, and it's going to take some draft and free agent stuff. But we've got a lot of time to talk about that. Peter has sent a final super chat in, getting in before the show ends, keeping my streak alive. Thank you, Peter. Really appreciate that, and look, massively appreciate everybody who's sent super chats in. It really helps towards the channel and all the running costs and everything. So thank you for all of that. We've had massive numbers today. I don't think we've ever had as many people watch a live stream after a game. So thank you to everybody for watching along. SeahawksDraftBlog.com. I'm going to have my draft review article up on Wednesday. Got a lot of notes, but all day today watching college football to get all those notes written up. So a lot of work's gone into that. So Wednesday for that. I think the stream with Jeff will be back on Monday this week. It was Tuesday last week. I think we'll be back on Monday. So tomorrow at around 2 p.m. Pacific time. So join us for that on the channel. If you subscribe to the channel, let's get those subscriptions closer to 10K. You will not miss any of the videos, whether you watch live or on playback. Give this video a like. That's really important for the channel. If you could leave a comment in the comment section as well, even if it's just to say go Hawks, that's always really, really appreciated. Robbie, I massively appreciate your time as always. Thank you for your company.
Always. Thanks for having me.
Good stuff.
Come back. Just keep coming.
Great hat as well. Great
Thanks,
hat.
Man.
You've got a great hat game going there.
Man, I got so many hats. I could wear a different hat every day, and it's crazy.
I'm exactly the same. But that was a great. I like the green one. Big thank you to everybody who's watched along. So we'll see you tomorrow for the Jeff stream. Until then, bye for now, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.